We're going to get into the Jerry Jones comments and Jerry Jones doubling down on said comments in a second, but there has been a roster move made by the Dallas Cowboys. According to Aaron Wilson, the Cowboys are signing Jalen Dalton. If you don't know who that is, I would wager 99% of people don't know who that is. He briefly played for the Falcons in 2022. He's bounced around the UFL, XFL, etc. This is going to be a practice squad move. There will have to be a corresponding transaction. Dallas basically shuffling the 70th player on their roster. It does not move the needle at all and will be a blip, I should say, on the Cowboys news radar thanks to all the stuff that Jerry Jones has said over the last 24-ish hours. He has once again turned the Cowboys into a top national storyline because he's sounding off and ripping the 105.3 The Fan radio hosts, doubling down on those, coming on the trade deadline, all kinds of stuff we will get into on today's show. But I want you guys to have a chance to sound off as well. Honest answers only. Do you like having Jerry Jones as the GM or the GM in name, which, as a reminder, Stephen Jones has plenty of power in this conversation. So when we're talking about Jerry, we're kind of including Stephen in this conversation. Sound off in the comments. Y for yes, N for no. Now, this all started on Tuesday, which with Jerry Jones saying, hey, there's not going to be any midseason changes to Mike McCarthy, and then not even that challenging or hard of questions asked by the 105.3 the fan crew. And Jerry got really defensive, really mad. Talk about how he wants the credit for the good things he's done. 20 years ago, he insulted the hosts kind of repeatedly and then threatened to replace them, have them fired, and saying, I will find someone else to do these interviews. This is not your job, blah, blah, blah. We'll break down one of the more noteworthy quotes from Jerry Jones in this when he said, this is not your job. Your job isn't to let me go over all the reasons that I did something and I'm sorry that I did it. That's not your job. I'll get somebody else to ask these questions. I'm not kidding. You're not going to figure it out what the team is doing right or wrong. If you are, or any 5 or 10 like you need to come to this NFL meeting I'm going to today with 32 teams here because you're geniuses. There were very valid questions that weren't even like that hard of questions. Like they weren't like overly grilling him or whatever. They clearly struck a nerve. They clearly bothered Jerry. And the reason being is simple. Deep down, Jerry knows those questions are valid. He knows they are right. He knows that the stuff that's gone wrong with this team, whether he even wants to admit it to himself, he's kind of shuffling between some of the denial and anger and even acceptance stages of griefs in his quotes. He knows that they are right. So how much of this season, percentage-wise, is the fault of Jerry Jones, Stephen Jones, the Cowboys ownership group? Let me know at the pinned comment of today's show. In the end, the answer is probably actually 100% as far as I'm concerned. Because the buck has to stop with the owner and the GM and the guy that is the decider, right? He doesn't like to take accountability. We have seen that time and time again. He's not a fan of doing it. He doesn't want to admit his mistakes. This is not an organization that would ever go, we screwed up with Amari Cooper, let's bring him back, especially at a midseason trade. And I do think that mentality, that, well, it ain't my fault. Owner's not that mad. Everything's fine. I think that trickles down. Coaching staff, players, to everybody involved. Now, frankly, what surprised me the most was that Jerry had a chance on Tuesday, and maybe he'll come back and do it later. I thought he'd come back and say, I'm sorry, I apologize, I overreacted, I'm just frustrated. He didn't do that. He doubled down, which I will break down here in a second, but that frankly did surprise me, even if the theory of Jerry's just trying to take attention away from his players and staff doing a bad job, and he'll take the fall and get the attention that way, might have some merit. I am surprised he chose to double down. Now, today's show is made possible by Game Time. Game Time has a new feature. It's called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to your favorite teams play live even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to only show you the incredible deals on great seats. Don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets. So whether you're going to maybe not a Cowboys game right now, but Mavs are coming back here. You can go to college football games. You can go to concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Make sure you're using Game Time. The Game Time guarantee is this. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. So download the Game Time app today, create your account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create your account, redeem code CHATSPORTS, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off. Download Game Time today because what time is it? It's game time. Jerry Jones, rejecting some comments to make at NFL owners' meetings, did sit down with the Athletic, Diana Rossini, and said this. I don't know that I would go as far as calling the volume connotation as yelling, okay? But the facts are that if I'm going to be grilled by the tribunal, I don't need it to be the guys I'm paying. I can take it from the fans. I can take it from other people. I take a lot of pride in how fair and how much I try to work with the media. We're brothers and sisters. But I was a little frustrated there today. We got in there as of accounting for decisions made in the offseason, okay? They might as well have gone back to stuff made in 2010. My point is, and that's from my perspective, there's no question, I'm sure they would have liked to have grilled me like the fans are thinking. What are you going to do about that? I get it. I get all of that. And really will go along with it. The wrong ones were doing the questioning. Now, if those had been real fans sitting there, or if there had been people that knew what they were talking about, football people, I might have had a different answer. Quite frankly, I think that's Bush League from Jerry Jones and completely uncalled for. These guys do a good job. Now, maybe I don't even fit the football people. I kind of think he meant like people in the league was what he meant by that. But I'll tell you what, I do fit the fan angle. And you fit the fan angle as well. So Jerry's kind of doubling down and saying, well, maybe the questions were fine, but I didn't want it to come from them, even though he doesn't actually pay them. It was all very strange to me. And this still deep down refusal to really admit you were wrong. Still won't say it. So, since the fans are allowed to criticize Jerry Jones, this is your chance. Grade Jerry Jones, the GM. All the stuff he's done. And if Jerry Jones, this is what bothers me, you want to get credit for the stuff you've done previously? Jerry, no other GM would have made it through that late 90s campaign, even with these Super Bowls. You would have been fired already. So you don't get credit for all that stuff previously, because that is a long, long time ago. So grade Jerry Jones, the GM, right now. A, B, C, D, or F in the comment section of today's show. I do think some of the Jerry wants the attention, it's going to go to him, it'll be on him, Cowboys will still be talked about, takes away from McCarthy, the players. I think that does have some merit. I also don't think that makes any of this okay. Because Jerry Jones is not doing this for us, the fans. He doesn't care about that. Jerry Jones cares about finding ways to keep the Cowboys in the headlines. ESPN led with Jerry Jones again on a Tuesday. You got Monday Night Football. You got all this stuff going on around the National Football League. Games to talk about instead. Or we're doing hour-long segments on Jerry Jones calling out radio show hosts. In the end, you know what's actually happening? He's embarrassing us again. That is my big takeaway from this. This is not fun conversation. I don't want to be talking about Jerry Jones. I am tired of it. I would like to ignore him. That's not really something you can ignore, especially when he does sound off with some other noteworthy tidbits as part of the conversation with The Athletic. You know, they asked him about the roster. You know, how do you feel about the personnel? We have great personnel. I'm proud of our personnel, which sounds very Trumpian if he just throws in, we have the best personnel type of deal, right? Sometimes it sounds like he's a weird combination of Biden and Trump because he's a politician sometimes, and I mean that as a negative thing across the board. Jerry also said he's not thinking that when asked about trades because saying you're thinking about trades, saying you don't love your personnel, that would be admitting you made a mistake as well. In the end, this is what the Cowboys get. This is the negative reaction Jerry Jones incited upon himself and Stephen Jones in the front office when you say you're all in. Which, for the record, no, they're not. They're clearly not all in. It sets the expectation of we're going to go for it. We're going to have success. We're going to be aggressive. Their actions consistently since the end of that disastrous playoff game in January tell us otherwise. Their mouths are saying one thing, and everything else is saying something else. And that frustrates me. And I'll tell you why they're doing that in just a second. But if you haven't already, now is a great time to subscribe. We're here every day, multiple videos per day. We'll have another video for you this afternoon. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/CowboysTV. Here's what Dallas is doing, whether they want to admit it or not. They were not doing a real rebuild this offseason. They were not going to tear it down and embrace a proper rebuild if that's the route that they were going to go. They weren't going to do that. They also were not going to actually be aggressive and invest more in Mike McCarthy. They tried to ride the middle ground. They tried to sit right in the center of we're going to get our books in line, we're going to organize things there, but we're not going to be aggressive and give Mike McCarthy more talent. Call it a reset, a retooling, a soft rebuild, whatever you want to call it. The Cowboys won't admit to it. But the front office, in the end, is trying to play the long game here. That is what they are doing. And frankly, the 2025 outlook looks a hell of a lot better than the 2024 outlook. New coaching staff, tons of cap space, etc. What they were also hoping to do was sneak by this year. Mike will be coaching for his job. Let's not commit. Let's not rebuild. Let's see if we can't win 10 games, still be a fringe contender. Let's try to have our cake and eat it too. I still don't really understand that idiom because if you have cake, why wouldn't you want to eat it? But everyone knows what it actually means. You were trying to have it both ways. You were trying to not sacrifice your future, not be too far in right now, but not sell on this year because you couldn't get people in the seats if you told them you were going to do a real full-scale rebuild and maybe do it properly. That's why you paid Dak and Lamb and nobody else, because those guys are going to be here in 25, 26, 27, 28, etc. And the problem you now face is there is a massive alignment issue between the coaching staff coaching for their jobs, fighting for their lives, and the front office going, no, we should play the young guys. You kind of saw it at left tackle and center. I don't think Mike McCarthy and this coaching staff wants to have 2 first-year players and 2 position change guys at the 2 most important spots on the offensive line. I don't think that's an ideal outcome. There were no other options. Because Chuma Edoga stinks, and Brock Hoffman isn't very good either. This is the results you get when you are not aligned with what your actual goals are. If the front office's real goal isn't to win a championship at all costs, what the head coaching's goal is, you get that friction, that misalignment, and frustration, and all kinds of ugly things you've seen so far this campaign. In the end, my advice, Jerry, shut up. Stop talking. This isn't doing anyone any good. It is not the 90s anymore. You do not need to create a storyline every week so that ESPN and the papers and the internet all talk about you. It'll happen on its own. Stop doing it. You're causing more problems than you think you're creating positive outcomes. All attention is not good attention. All you're doing is pissing off the fan base and frankly embarrassing us as well.